seeing how it looks. All right, give me a minute. We're trying to figure all this out. So
there is, all it's you. It's just you again.
Okay, well, I don't have anything else. So that's what it should be right now. Then let me share the screen. Do you see that? Okay. All right, let's figure it out. All right, if you're there, everybody, we are trying to figure out the tech for this. I'm not sure how it's going to work. I'm not turning on my mic. You need to just. Hi, Aisha. See you're there. I'm trying to figure all this out. We're having technical difficulties. Thanks for letting me know you're there. Trying to. Oh, I think I got it. Do I have it?
All right.
Is it working?
That looks good.
Okay, everybody. I'm going to get started. So since I'm afraid to pull out of this and show you my face, I'm just going to start talking. I'm Angel, and I'm so glad you're here tonight. This is my perimenopause, menopause PowerPoint tonight, and we're just going to talk a little bit. In just a second, I'm going to tell you everything we're going to be talking about, but you do need to know that I'm not a medical doctor nor a psychiatrist. The views of this workshop are my own. And if you make any changes, make sure to talk to your doctor about any supplements or medications that you may change. And the FDA wants me to tell you that this has not been evaluated by them. It's not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent disease. So I am Angel Hill. I have more than a dozen years in alternative health. I have my doctorate in naturopathy. If you want to get on LinkedIn, you can find all my degrees and certifications there. And I also have Alternative Health with Angel, which is my online platform where I offer natural health memberships. And at the end of the session tonight, I'll also show you where you can find me on social as well. But so tonight, what we're going to talk about is the 4 stages of perimenopause. And first off, who even knew that there were 4 stages, right? That's the first thing. Then we're going to talk about how we can support through balancing the minerals and our cortisol. And then we're going to look at some tips for grocery shopping, one free, easy way to lower cortisol. And it's very simple and easy. And then usually what's the most fun part for everybody is talking about belly fat. We're going to talk about insulin and belly fat. Then we're going to get a little bit into thyroid. When we get into thyroid, make sure you have your phone available because I'm going to show you a complete thyroid panel so you can make sure that's what you ask for the next time you go to the doctor. And then at the end, we'll talk about how I can help you. So this is so crazy to me, but menopause is just one day. So perimenopause can start either in our late 30s all the way to our late 40s. And once we've gone 12 consecutive months of no periods, then we have one day where we're considered in menopause. And then the rest of our lives, we're in postmenopause. And it's just crazy. That's the way they've got it set up. But as we talked about earlier, there are stages of perimenopause. And some of the things that happen during perimenopause are our estrogen will decrease. Our ovaries run out of eggs. The thickness of our uterine lining changes as well according to hormone levels, and that can affect a lot of things, including our comfort or discomfort. Our periods become irregular. We're not producing progesterone because we're not ovulating as much, and progesterone is required to have a baby. So our body says, hey, you're not having a baby. We don't need any progesterone. And our ovulation all that time becomes irregular too, which, produces all this. So what we're looking at are the 4 stages of perimenopause. So we have the first stage when periods are still pretty regular, but you're just not feeling right. You know, your hormones are not right. And this can actually begin up to 10 years before menopause. I'm sorry. And it can begin in the late 30s. So the second stage is when you start having irregular periods. So usually by this point, you know something is going on. Not sure if you're pregnant or maybe you're going through perimenopause, that sort of thing. And then the third stage, you definitely know you're into perimenopause. You go at least 2 months without a cycle. Things are really starting to change. You're starting to have symptoms, which we'll talk about in a second. And then stage 4, the end of it, is usually around 51 is when we'll get there for that final stage. And some of the common symptoms we see is your cycle will change, but everybody is really individualistic when it gets to this. So you may have a heavier cycle or you may have a lighter cycle. Yours may be shorter or maybe longer. So it's just really difficult when it comes to that. Physical changes, almost everyone has weight gain, which we'll talk about. Sore breasts sometimes, changes in libido, vaginal dryness, and that's because of that uterine wall that we talked about earlier and the vaginal wall. Sleep may change. A lot of times sleep will change because of the vasomotor changes that you see below there, the night sweats and hot flashes. You just can't sleep because you're so hot. And then mood changes. A lot of people that come to see me, my clients, will talk about that. So stage 1, so our cycle is likely still regular, but we could have sporadic ovulation and therefore lower progesterone. And progesterone's only made because of ovulation. So what happens a lot of time in this stage is that women and doctors sometimes, without really checking, will think that you are having estrogen dominance, that you have too much estrogen when that's not the case. And so they'll do things like pharmaceutically that are actually not what they should be doing. So make sure if you are on hormones or anything that your doctor is definitely checking those. Now, some symptoms of low progesterone are migraines, sleep disturbances, really heavy and painful periods. And by the way, some people report on the sleep disturbances just after like 3 nights of taking progesterone. Sometimes their sleep gets better. So that really shows you how much progesterone can make a difference. Breast pain, irritable mood, headaches, things like that you'll have with those low progesterone. And then we get into stage 2, where our cycles become more irregular. So this was the one where I talked about you kind of know that you're definitely getting into perimenopause, and you may have even longer periods. Your progesterone is still probably low, and your estrogen is going back and forth. It's going all over the place. And so what happens is you get your estrogen's high and then it drops really low. And that is what actually causes the hot flashes and night sweats. It's these constant roller coasters of our hormones, particularly the estrogen during this. And on this next slide here, we're going to talk about symptoms of high fluctuating estrogen. So again, they look like low progesterone, don't they? The irritable mood, the breast pain. This even talks about abdominal weight gain, vaginal dryness. So very similar symptoms to the low progesterone. So that's why you really need to either work with a good practitioner, talk to your doctor, or talk to me so that you can make sure you get the right test to know where you're at in this, because these symptoms sometimes will mimic each other. All right, and then we get into stage 3. We're almost at the end here. So like missing periods that for like more than 2 months. Now, the high estrogen symptoms where it's bouncing all around, up and down, fluctuating, usually ease up a little bit during this time. And so that means like breast pain could ease, but night sweats and hot flashes can actually get worse in this time. So that is one of those things that through my own personal experience and my clients' experience, the night sweats and hot flashes do seem to stick around for the whole time frame. And here we go for the low estrogen. Again, hot flashes and night sweats compared to those other symptoms as well. Mood and sleep issues, again. So very similar symptoms for whether it's high or low estrogen, things like that. And I put on here at the bottom abdominal weight gain because we are going to be talking about that again soon. And then finally, this stage 4, we know that we're basically in menopause at this point, but we haven't gone that 12 months yet. So we're not official. There's likely low estrogen. Symptoms of high and low estrogen are probably easing. We're probably just at the low estrogen point now. Mood and sleep hopefully are stabilizing. And then again, although hot flashes can continue, like I said, that's one of those things. But some of the tips I'm going to give you tonight are going to definitely help with that for sure. So how do I fix this, right? What are we going to do? Well, my framework works on the foundation of minerals. So minerals are kind of like the spark plug of our body. and they keep all the hormones above them working. So if we don't have good minerals, nothing's working. And from there, I like to work on what they call the hormone hierarchy. And in the hormone hierarchy, cortisol is on the bottom, then insulin, then the thyroid hormones, and then the sex hormones. There's a few other things and little things in the middle of there, but these are the main ones. And so what this means when you're looking at this is that we got to get our minerals right first. Then we might need to work on cortisol, then insulin, then thyroid, then sex hormones. So basically, for instance, if your minerals are out of whack, nothing above it is going to be in balance. Same with cortisol. Say your minerals are right, but we haven't got your cortisol right. Same thing. Your insulin, thyroid, and sex hormones are going to be off. So you have to work on it from the root cause up to see what's going on and to really be able to fix it. The good news is that cortisol, which we're going to be talking about in a little bit here, is kind of our it's our stress hormone, but it's easy to get it up. And when you get it where it needs to be balanced, you get more energy. And typically that happens in about a week or so when I'm working with people. So what I'm saying is the good news is we can get these foundational ones really working pretty well to get you some energy to help you finish off fixing up the other hormones at the top, right? All right. So one of the problems we have with minerals, though, is we are so low in them. And according to the Scientific American magazine, as you can see here, because of soil depletion, crops grown decades ago were much richer in vitamins and minerals than the varieties most of us get today. So there are spark plug, as I said earlier, you want to test, not guess. And we're going to talk about this in a little bit of how I prefer to test minerals rather than probably what you have normally heard. And these nutrients add to the body, nutrient deficiencies add to our stress, but stress depletes our nutrients at a high rate. So we have this constant cycle going on where we're not getting the nutrients from our food for many reasons, not just because of the minerals. But then we are also so stressed out that our minerals are going away, all our nutrients are going away. So most of us, unfortunately, particularly in this country, are all walking around nutrient deficient, even though we have access to tons of food. So my first tip of the evening is going to be drink water. And I know, like, Angel, what are you talking about? But think about it. We go all night and we're dehydrated when we wake up in the morning. And the things we're going to add to this water are what's going to help us. So 8 ounces is about a cup of water. You want to do this before drinking or eating anything else, particularly your coffee. And we're going to talk about that in a few minutes. You're going to add a squeeze of lemon and a 1/4 teaspoon of salt. Now, the lemon, a lot of people who have adrenal issues, which most people who are going through menopause do, they are not alkaline in their body. They're more acidic in their pH, and lemon helps alkalize your body. So not only is lemon in that drink of water in the morning helping your cortisol, it's also helping your liver. It helps flush out your liver in the morning. Now, that 1/4 teaspoon of salt, that is to get some minerals in you. Now, when you think about salt and sodium, most people think about the sodium that they read on a box when they're looking at something, or a can of soup, and they'll be like, oh man, there's so much sodium in that. There is, and it's not the good kind. If sodium is in a box, it's not the kind you need. You need really good salt that has minerals not stripped out of them. I like real salt right here. There's like this one, the sea salt. You could use Celtic salt, pink Himalayan salt, anything like that, but you want to get good salt. You don't want that sodium from packaged foods. Now, the adrenals, interestingly, use more sodium than any other organ of the body. So you're immediately helping the adrenals when you put the salt in this drink as well. And sea salt helps reduce cortisol, which is the adrenals put out, which causes belly fat. And adrenaline, because it keeps you from dehydrating. So all of this right here is helping your liver. It's helping your pH of your body. It is helping your adrenals, your cortisol, everything. So first thing in the morning, this is really simple, but I have clients, this is all they'll do, and they see a difference. Preferably, though, we want them to do a couple more things. So the second glass of water, you want to be looking at electrolytes. So electrolytes are going to give you those foundation minerals of the day. Remember, I showed you minerals are kind of like my bottom. So we kind of talked about cortisol a minute ago with the water. And now we are at minerals. So if you can't do anything else, if you can get those calcium, magnesium, potassium, and sodium, those foundation minerals in you every day, that's going to help so much. So electrolytes, most people think, oh, that's just for when I'm hot and sweaty and things like that. but they encourage healthy hormone levels. It gets your exercise performance up. It's good for brain function. All of us need that. Mood issues, and even a strong immune system. I personally love these Paleo Valley essential electrolytes that you see here. They're extremely clean. There's no sugar in them, no coloring. So that's what you want to look for when you're looking for electrolytes. You want to get no sugar and no food colorings. Those are the biggest things. And if you're like, I have no clue what to get, if you have a couple to choose from, you can send them to me. You can DM me or whatever you like, and I can look at them and tell you which I think is better and why. But definitely, if you can start your day with a second glass of water that's being electrolytes, even better. Again, we're waiting on the coffee. We'll talk about that. Now, the next few slides are going to be about supporting our adrenals, and we kind of already talked about that a little bit. But I wanted to talk about drinking that lemon and salt water. That's the first thing you can do for cortisol. And by the way, some of you may hear about adrenal tonics that you can do in the morning. And that's basically the water and the lemon and the salt or adrenal tonics. But sometimes people like to put orange juice in them. And I am here to say, do not do that. If you want to eat an orange, that's fine. But a cup, 8 ounces of orange juice is 18 grams of sugar. That is liquid sugar. And we're going to be talking about that in a few minutes. So I just want you, if you're one of those people and you're like, oh, well, I'm already doing my adrenal cocktail in the morning. If it has fruit juice in it, we need to rethink it. Okay. So something else we're going to cover is eating so your body feels safe, what that means, breathing, and the belly fat. So that's what's coming up in these next couple of sections before we get to thyroid and everything. So what to eat? All right, so you're looking for unprocessed foods, meat, seafood, eggs, vegetables, fruits, nuts, seeds. If you shop the outer edges of your grocery store, you're going to be doing pretty good. Okay. Every once in a while, you got to go into frozen or you got to get a canned good. But most of the time, if you can get the majority, they say 80% of your food in those areas, you're going to be great. Unprocessed is extremely hard to find. If you're trying to go extremely unprocessed, shoot me a message in the DMs and I'll send you a website that can tell you like normal things that you see in the grocery store, how processed they are considering other things. But if once you get used to eating this way, it's not hard. And one of the things I want to remind you is don't be afraid of healthy fats. Don't be afraid of like avocados, olive oil, things like that. Because if it's like coming out of the ground, it's okay for you to eat. Does that make sense? Vegetables, fruit, if you're eating them in their whole form, they are okay to eat. So a lot of times somebody's asking me right now, can we get those vitamins and minerals from calcium and magnesium? Yeah, you can get them from your supplements or you can get them from food. The problem is magnesium in particularly has been farmed out of the soil. So we're just not getting it in our food as much as we used to. So that's one of the problems with our vitamins and minerals. Unfortunately, we're not getting them as well as we'd like to. Something to keep in mind if you're trying to save some money though, when it comes to organic, if you're really looking at organic stuff, particularly fruits and vegetables, if you eat the skin, you probably want to go more organic. So think blueberries, stuff like that. You want to probably get organic. But if you don't eat the skin, like avocados or something like that, you should be okay not getting it organic. Now, organic does have more vitamins and minerals. That has been proven. But if we're trying to save money and you're trying to just at least to eat healthy, that's a good way to go. Now, some tips for grocery shopping that I use all the time is I love to plan ahead. I actually save recipes on Pinterest. I have all kinds of boards on Pinterest. And so what I'll do is one day a week, I sit down and I look through everything on the, what's the list? Ask my husband what he wants to eat. We tend to, there's 7 nights in the week, right? We tend to cook 5 nights of those. And we tend to have leftovers on the other 2 nights. And so after I figured out what recipes I'm putting together, I literally put them on my list in my phone and I just say, okay, here's my 5 meals for the week. And we always also add 2 of those meals are always salad meals. So we'll make a big salad and put some protein in it. And then from that list, I basically just look at the recipes and go into another app that I have that has different like Publix and Target. That's the main places I get my groceries. And I throw them in there. And then when it comes the day before grocery shopping, I actually order on the app through Target. That means that they bring the groceries to my car. I never have to go inside. Why is that good? saves you a ton of money, and you're not buying things that weren't on the list. Does that make sense? So you don't go in there and say, oh, I'm hungry, I need a candy bar. You don't do that because they're putting the stuff right in your trunk. And so if you do have to go to the store, though, inside the store, two things you need to do. Make sure you stick to your list and eat before you grocery shop. I recommend, like, sometimes what I'll do is have like a silk Greek yogurt, which has like 10 grams of protein in it, or I'll have some nuts. Sometimes I'll have a boiled egg, but definitely some protein before I go grocery shopping. If I know I have to go inside the store, because I do not want to be hungry when I'm grocery shopping. And I just get hangry because I've gotten to the point now where I don't buy a bunch of junk, but I don't want to be hangry while I'm in the grocery store. That's no fun, right? Now, this next thing is going to be really simple and easy. Breathe to tame your cortisol. So mindful breathing is an instant remedy that can help us lower cortisol levels by 27% and reduce blood pressure immediately. It just takes 3 long breaths, slow, deep breaths. You inhale and you exhale. I have a customer that came in because I had done a little social media on this, and she couldn't believe the difference. I saw her today. She mentioned it to me again today. She said it has literally changed her life. This is free and easy, people. Even if you just do it once a day. Sometimes when I'm at work, I have to run to the bathroom and breathe. Okay, so you may have to do that too. It's certainly helpful. All right, so now we're going to talk about insulin balancing, blood sugar. We're also going to talk about belly fat here. Something that you need to consider is getting your fasting insulin checked. It is not a normal check from the doctors. They don't normally do that, but it is a good way to see if you're possibly insulin resistant. A lot of people are insulin resistant and don't know it. And I think you'd rather know when you're insulin resistant than when you turn diabetic. So that's kind of what a lot of doctors do. They just wait till you tick over to that mark where you're diabetic, and then they're like, okay, now you're in this disease state. Well, we want to look at optimal states. So keep that in mind. And we're going to talk about that a little bit more as well. But right now we're talking about body fat, abdominal fat. So that belly fat that none of us like. So as we age, we naturally become more insulin resistant. But then us women, we also lose progesterone and estrogen. Now, I need to give a definition here. Androgens. Androgens are basically just groups of male hormones that include testosterone. So when you see that, just think testosterone. So when we lose that progesterone and estrogen, it causes our androgens to go up, which drives insulin resistance, which in turn drives androgens. So as you can see in this picture here, it's this self-eating snake. It just keeps causing problems. If you are someone who has PCOS, polycystic ovarian syndrome, you know this well. This is what is happening in that syndrome. So we got to figure out a way to stop this, right? Biggest thing you can do. If I had a magic wand, all over the place, I would make everybody eat protein for their first meal of the day. I don't care what time you're eating it. I don't care if it's 8 o'clock or noon. Your first meal of the day needs to be protein with a little bit of fat. It does not need to be oatmeal. It does not need to be cereal with orange juice. Those are all carbs, and they are not going to get you where you need to go. The next slide in a second is going to really show you what those do to you. Get protein in the morning, 15 to 30 grams, and it's going to balance your blood sugar. That is so important. If you can get that blood sugar balanced in the morning, the rest of the day goes better. Even if at 3 o'clock you decide to eat some sugar, it's going to pump up your blood sugar, but not nearly as much if you had eaten that protein and fat in the morning. And I cannot say this enough. And keep in mind, the second thing you want to do is avoid liquid sugars. And that's all day long. So like sweet tea, sodas, ice cream, sports drinks, pre-workout, orange juice, as we talked about earlier, you want to avoid those. Those are literally just going in your body and killing you. They're like just liquid death. There's no reason to do that. So if you want sweets, you want to keep sweets in your diet, make sure they're not liquid. You can add other things. You and I aren't going to get in any trouble doing that nearly as much as if the liquid sugars. And I don't think you can do this all at once. So say you're like, man, Angel, I drink sweet tea every day. Well, how about tomorrow, instead of having full sweet, you do like 3/4 sweet. And then maybe next week you do a half sweet. And then maybe a month later, you do a quarter sweet. Does that make sense? So just kind of do it a little bit at a time, but that is your goal. Now, the protein in the morning, you can easily do. There's no reason you can't do that. You can even do breakfast from the night before, okay? Whatever works for you. Protein shake, eggs, avocados. I put it all together. Eggs are about 6 grams of protein. Avocados have about 5 grams of protein, I think, depending on how big they are. So put something together for yourself that is not carby. You want protein. So no oatmeals and cereals. You want protein and no liquid sugars. Now, this next slide is going to show you why. This is what happens. We have this blood sugar roller coaster. Things start going crazy. So you see it, if you can probably barely see it, but at the bottom there, it says sugar, carby, breakfast. This is what happens. Your blood sugar goes crazy through the day. That affects every single organ in your body. And if you remember on my framework that the minerals were on the bottom and then cortisol, and what was next? Insulin. Yeah, that's way lower than where our sex hormones are, right? So if we're not getting our insulin right, it's causing our sex hormones to be off, which is causing all those, like we were talking about, the hot flashes and the night sweats. And it's also making us put belly fat on because our body thinks that it's not safe. Now, I said we were going to talk about that. So our body thinks when we're getting processed food, it thinks we are not safe because we are not getting the nutrients that we need. So when we're eating whole foods like whole oranges and grass-fed beef and things like that, our body's like, okay, this is what I'm supposed to have. This is food I can recognize, and this means I'm going to have a steady source of food. But if I'm eating junk all the time, my body thinks I'm not going to have a steady source of food, and my insulin levels are going to be all over the place, which in turn means your thyroid levels will be all over the place, your sex hormones will be all over the place, and you may get some belly fat and all that because the cortisol will get off as well. So just keep that in mind. 2 simple things: the protein in the morning and less liquid sugars. Now, here's some blood sugar hacks for you, whether you're eating sugar or not. These are great. I highly recommend, if you're on social media, to follow the glucose goddess. She has got some amazing hacks. And here are a couple of them that she talks about. So you can have vinegar before a meal. You can do it in a drink. You can put it on top of your food. All vinegars except balsamic. Balsamic actually has too much sugar to do this with, but vinegar lowers your blood sugar, but not in a bad way. It's not going to make you hypoglycemic. It just helps level those sugars out. I like to put it on my food, particularly on eggs. I like it, so I'll do that in the morning. I found this little Texas Pete thing, and I'm going to pull the peppers out of it and put my apple cider vinegar in there and just use it to tap it on the food. You can eat your veggies first. Like, so say you have broccoli, a steak, and a potato. Okay, so you're going to want to eat the broccoli first because that gets you fiber in there and that helps settle down those blood sugar spikes as well. You can also have an appetizer before meal. Maybe have like carrots and celery and hummus. Dennis and I like to make white bean hummus and eat it with cucumbers. So that's something you can do. Another thing you can do is walk for 10 minutes after your meal. That's all. All you got to do is 10 minutes. And that has been shown to get that blood sugar down. And before we talk about the last one here about the coffee, I did want to mention, so tonight for dinner, what we had coleslaw that we made it with vinegar instead of mayonnaise. And we had a grass-fed burger. So what I did is I put that coleslaw in the bottom of my bowl and I cut up the hamburger and I put it in there and I kind of ate it together. So I was getting the vinegar and the fiber all in the same time. And there wasn't any really sugar in there, so I didn't have to worry too much about spikes. But it's still, you spike every time you eat with your blood sugar. It just depends on how high you want to go. So that's an idea for you. If you're someone who's struggling with ideas for food, I can give you some places to go. So just DM me and I can give you some sites to look at. And then lastly, on these blood sugar hacks, think about this. In the morning, you want to do your water, lemon, and salt. You want to do your electrolytes. Then you want to have some food. Then coffee. Caffeine spikes your glucose levels if you consume it before food. So you want to do that food before you have your coffee in the morning. And that's not a bad thing, though, because you're getting your minerals in, you're getting your, everything's in your minerals, your pH in your body's better because caffeine will sometimes make you a little bit acidic. So that you're getting your pH level before you get all that in there. So I am not one who says don't do coffee, just wait. All right, this is the page where if you have a phone, I'm going to wait a second here so that you can take a picture of this. This is a complete thyroid panel. So your doctor, when he or she orders a thyroid panel, will probably usually order 1 or 2. Excuse me. They need to do all 7 of these, okay? This is going to tell us where everything's working in the body. As most people know, our body is all one process. It's not separated out. So we want to know everything going on with the thyroid, not just one thing. I do want to point out on the bottom here, this one that says ATA and TPO. Those are both for autoimmune issues. Always a good idea. That is something that is not picked up on. It's Hashimoto's when we're talking about thyroid. A lot of women in particular seem to get this. And so that is definitely those 2 you want. But you need to look at all of these. And I kind of want to talk about how doctors would look at it compared to what I would look at it. So we're going to go to this next slide here. Talk about conventional testing versus functional testing. So when we look at the thyroid panels, first off, like I said, I'm always looking for more than what they normally do. But I'm looking for optimal health where they're looking for disease. So if you look on my little chart here, on the left is conventional medicine. They're disease centered. They're looking there, all their measurements, blood work, and everything is looking for disease state. Well, I want to do something before I get into that disease state. So I have numbers that I look at and say, okay, when you're in these numbers, you may not be in thyroid disease, but your thyroid needs support and we need to support it. So I'm looking for optimal health. In conventional medicine, they're kind of looking for managing disease, whereas in functional, we're looking for preventing or reversing disease. In conventional, we're talking about everyone's treated the same. In functional, there's personalized plans. Everybody's different. What works for one person may not work for another. And that's a lot of times we have people who will come in the store and they're like, I told everybody about this particular supplement because it helped me so well. And we're so appreciative. But a lot of times the person, this particular supplement can't be taken if somebody's on a particular medicine or all these other things. So you got to really get with somebody who knows what they're doing when it comes to that. In conventional medicine, they tend to look at a very few markers, mainly for insurance and cost reasons. So, you can take that for what it is. In functional medicine, we're going to look for the root cause. Try not to make it cost too much money, but we're going to try to find what's going on. And then finally, your numbers look great. Nothing is wrong with your thyroid or nothing is wrong with anything. There could be a number of things we could throw in there, cholesterol, whatever. But again, there are things called subclinical hypothyroidism. So many women in particular are walking around with this, particularly in the menopause stage. And doctors are saying, you're fine. There's nothing wrong. But there is something going on, and we can definitely help with that. So you want to nourish the thyroid. Talk earlier about buying organic when you can. I know that's really difficult. Definitely try to get hormone free, particularly when we're talking about eggs and dairy. Those are a place we really want to try to be as hormone free as possible. Pesticide free, all of that stuff would be awesome. Now, one of the things you can do for your thyroid is to eat eggs. Eggs are, first off, great protein. And secondly, they have 16% of our iodine and 20% of our selenium in them. So, phenomenal for the thyroid. And you need to eat the yolk, okay? Don't worry about people saying don't eat the yolk. It's a myth. It's fine for your cholesterol. Eat the whole egg because it's going to be phenomenal for your thyroid. Now, you can eat Brazil nuts too, but you only want to eat Brazil nuts because they have selenium in them as well. Just like a few a day. You can actually eat too many Brazil nuts, so you don't want to go crazy with that. Ladies, if you have a husband, you will want him to eat the selenium as well too. Selenium is phenomenal for the prostate. So just keep that in mind. So give your husband like a few Brazil nuts as well if you like those. All right. So something else, and I could go on and on about plastics. BPAs, you've probably heard that term. They're found in water bottles, things like that. BPAs have shown in study after study to negatively affect the thyroid. It's just over and over again. Something else that we see negatively affecting the thyroid is the cell phone. Lots of different things with that. Interestingly, if the thyroid is on our neck area and we hold our phones up, a lot of times, some of us do. So that is something to definitely think about. Stress is a factor in everything I look at in anyone. So yes, of course it's going to affect the thyroid. I'm amazed how much stress affects everything. And then finally, the adrenals and the thyroid are intimately entwined. And so if one's off, the other's off. Sometimes I can get somebody's adrenals off, and that helps the thyroid. As we talked about earlier, the cortisol was a couple of steps down from the thyroid. So that makes sense, right? So you got to do this with somebody who knows what they're doing, and you got to make sure that you do it in the correct order so you can get these things fixed. So how can I help you? Well, I help elevate your nutrition. We look at what you're eating. We test to see what you need. So we identify mineral and hormone deficiencies. And I use a whole body approach. I don't just say, well, that's your thyroid. You got to go see this person. We look at all of it. Now, I have a couple of different things that I like to do, but the HTMA is my number one functional test that I enjoy doing. I think it tells us so much information, and it's pretty inexpensive, so you can really get a lot from it. And it's the bottom of that pyramid we talked about. We really can get that foundation going. Now, it's a test that measures the minerals in your hair with precise accuracy. We're talking about per million, right? Parts per million. You find out not only the nutrients that are happening, but also toxins like heavy metals and things like that. And so some people say, well, why don't you do that through blood work? Well, this is the problem with blood work. First off, blood work is a snapshot in time. Secondly, our blood tries to keep our minerals tight. And what I mean by that is it needs a certain amount of calcium, it needs a certain amount of magnesium, it needs all this stuff. And if for some reason, for instance, we don't have enough calcium in our blood, well, our body just goes and grabs some calcium from it leaches it really from our bones. Well, we don't want that, right? So our blood work may say, hey, your calcium level's fine, but it's still leaching from the bones, and we don't want that. But with hair, it's actually a tissue. If you think about it, hair is a tissue. So we see how these things are being absorbed and gotten rid of through our body. We're seeing the last 3 months instead of just a snapshot. So, and the heavy metals, which is a whole nother part of it, because heavy metals actually will displace minerals. So we can really see a lot with hair. And one of the things that's really cool is Environmental Protection Agency uses it. If you look at the bottom of the screen here, there's a little star that says Hero ID and it has some numbers after it. Take a picture of that if you like and put it into a search engine, and you can read about how the Environmental Protection Agency uses HTMA. It's my go-to. It's my number one functional test, like I said earlier. So I really feel like it gives us a ton of information. And I have several different types of memberships going on in my membership program. But tonight, since we're talking about perimenopause, I thought I would tell you about this one. It actually includes the hair tissue mineral analysis in the membership. So that's nice. You can immediately, it's the first thing we do. We get that to you, and you can get it tested. And we know within about 3 weeks what's going on with those minerals. We also get you started on some other stuff. So you're not just sitting there for 3 weeks. We get you feeling better pretty quickly. You get 1 30-minute telehealth appointment a month, weekly open group office hours. We've got a private online community. You get personalized supplement recommendations, and you get discounts on supplements and functional testing. And that is all for $125 a month. And we do just a minimum of 3 months. And one of the reasons why I work on minimum of 3 months with everything I do is because it takes the body about 3 months to heal itself. And so sometimes longer, depending on what's going on. But that's a good time frame to really get things kind of worked out. So if you have any questions, first off, thank you so much for being here tonight. I really appreciate it. Appreciate the questions. If you want to get a hold of me, you can go to alternativehealthwithangel.com. You can find me on Facebook and Instagram at Alt Health Angel. I'm on LinkedIn as well. And by the way, if you go to my website, alternativehealthwithangel.com, and you sign up for my newsletter, you will actually get an 8-minute pod. It's a private pod, and it's talking about actionable tips to help with energy. Some of them we talked about tonight, and some of them we didn't. So there's a couple of different things in there. But feel free to go do that. And if you have any questions, please reach out to me in the DMs. Thanks so much for listening.